Hi there, happy hump day. It must be Wednesday. We all have them. You know those days where it just isn't working. Things aren't going according to plan. You might have been late for a really important meeting, or a presentation you needed to do just didn't land well, or that conversation you needed to have with an important client or a stakeholder, you didn't nail it, and you walk away feeling frustrated, annoyed, angry. You got two choices at this point. You can reflect or you can ruminate. Now, both practices require you to look back, but there's a difference because the emphasis and the focus is different. It's really easy to ruminate. We all do it. When you ruminate, you run the scenario again and again and again in your head, but you're not doing it in a way that's helpful, because what you're trying to do is actually rewrite, shift elements of how the conversation or the presentation or whatever it was went. It becomes like that broken record in your head, just keeps spinning around. You can't quite find the button to turn it off. When we ruminate, we're not being productive. We're not being productive with our thought processes because we're not reaching any conclusion. And the research shows that rumination can lead to a range of negative outcomes: depression, anxiety, overeating, and drinking, for example. As the brilliant psychologist Daniel Kahneman, author of Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, said, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is whilst you are thinking about it." So rumination stops you from learning. It stops you from moving forward. And that's the difference, because that's what reflection is about. When you reflect, you're learning. When you reflect, you think about the situation. You focus on uncovering why it occurred, what you've learned, how you were feeling, and what you would do differently next time. And it requires you to have a growth mindset, because you're generating insights in terms of the cause of the situation, and it's outcome focused. Now, a number of researchers actually did some really interesting research in the context of reflection and how it relates to learning. And so the context is slightly different to this particular situation, but it still holds nuggets of insight that are worthwhile. So the researchers Giulia De Stefano, Francesco Gino, Gary Pisano, and Bradley Statz, what they did was they examined how reflecting improves learning. And they did this in the context of a large business outsourcing company. And what they found was that a person's performance differed when their learning was coupled with reflection. And in their research, they wrote, "Articulating and codifying prior experience does entail a high opportunity cost of one person's time. Yet thinking after completing task isn't an idle pursuit, and that it could powerfully enhance the learning process, and that it added to the experience rather than just doing the learning alone." So next time you're faced with a situation where something just hasn't worked out for you, why don't you ruminate? No? Why don't you flip it? Flip it and reflect on it and see where that would land you. And so here's a couple of things to keep in mind as you're flipping your rumination into reflection. Ask yourself how prepared you were for the situation. What happened? Why did it happen? What was going on for you at the time? And that means digging into how you were feeling during the conversation. What do you think was going on for the other person? What do you think their perspective might have been? What was the outcome? What was the desired outcome? So where's the gap? And most importantly, what would you do differently next time? How would you make sure that you're better prepared, both mentally and physically? Now, I'm sure you'd also have other questions that you would add to that list. The important thing with reflection is it is something that you do on a continual basis, so that you're continuing to challenge yourself, continuing to learn. And I always remember a teacher of mine once saying, "Warning, reflection causes learning." So that's a great note to end on, and I'll see you next week. Take care.